Ladies and gentlemen, the P's are here to talk about Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. But I am going to be signing my review. There will be subtitles on the screen for those that are watching on YouTube. Alrighty.
I need an ape
We got that ready to
an
go.
ape version of that.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is another episode of Two Peas on a Podcast. Thank you so much for joining us, where we review the latest and sometimes greatest movies every week. Gerald here with you, and over on the other side, for some reason, pounding his chest vigorously, Nick. How are you, buddy?
Apes together, strong.
That's right, baby. I'm ready. I'm ready to rock and roll. I'm reporting here from isn't it it's amazing to me. If you look, I'm actually on the set, of the next Planet of the Apes movie. I'm actually live on the set, and if you take a look at the amazing audio audience, you got to tune into the video.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to look at the amazing makeup and visual effects they got going. They almost look human. Almost. It's so close.
You know what's beautiful about that is look at the little button is undone, the top button. Got a little something teasing down there. You know what I mean? Yeah, those apes are getting sexier every movie, every installment.
Although the lead actor doesn't want to wear pants ever, so I don't know. That's a weird thing. I don't know.
Oh yeah, this is one of those things, Well, anyway, guys, we're here obviously talking about the new Apes film, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. This one directed by Wes Ball, who is kind of gained notoriety as of late because he's signed on to do the new Legend of Zelda adaptation film, which will be his next project. So I think things are going to be taking off for this dude, and it'll be interesting because I know you and I both love the previous trilogy, the Matt Reeves films, and we just recently talked about Rise of the Planet of the Apes on this show. We did that as a Patreon pick, and I know we're big fans of those prior films, so I'm excited to see kind of what you think of Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. But before we get into our review this week, Nick, every week for the next few weeks, we're going to be talking more and more about Livestream for the Cure, which is something that you're very passionate about, that we put on every year to benefit the Cancer Research Institute. Why don't you tell the folks a little bit about it and tell them where they can visit to find out more about that event?
Which, first of all, thank you so much, everybody. Huge shout out to everybody that ordered merch in the first batch. Thank you so much. Absolutely amazing. We've already cleared something in the neighborhood of $300+ in early proceeds, all because of merch sales. Nice. So that's absolutely amazing. I'm really just thrilled by that. But I mean, basically it's our 8th year, baby. 8th year. G Money's been doing it for 5 or 6 years with me now. I don't even know. He's come to my house a couple times, although he can't make the trip here this year, unfortunately. But we raise money for the Cancer Research Institute for immunotherapy research, which is training the body's immune system to fight against all forms of cancer. We're going to be live from May 29th. Gerald, it's going to be 4 straight days, 12+ hours on the air every single day. It's going to be absolutely amazing. Tons and tons of amazing content from creators and podcasters all over the world. Sean Ennis is going to do the Hot Ones Challenge again. You get to punish Joey DiCarlo by making him drink sweet corn soda. I mean, and other kinds of just super fun stuff. I got to find a way to punish Gerald. How am I going to punish Gerald?
We'll have to be on the air with you for 12 hours.
True. That is very true. Logan's going to be doing his own Peas countdown. He better be.
Yeah, we're gonna have it's gonna be the two of us and Logan, and I'll probably get our boy Brad and.
Okay. Now I thought it was gonna be fun until you said Brad.
Whenever I have Brad on, it's good for me because then I can deflect all the insults, and you guys hit Brad the whole time, so it works out for me. But yeah, I already told Logan he's picking the topic, so we'll have a fun segment. I'm looking forward to it, man. It's going to be a blast, and it's obviously for a good cause, raising money for the Cancer Research Institute.
100%.
I commend everything you do.
Always 100% of proceeds go to the Cancer Research Institute. That's 88 cents of every dollar going to actual cancer research. The field of immunotherapy, ever since even we've started doing the event, has exploded in the number of types of cancer that are treatable by immunotherapy, which I love so much. And we always have just an absolute blast putting it on every year. And everybody dedicates their time and energy to raise money for a really good cause. And hey, we're going to break 6 figures this year. And for all of us nobodies out here in the indie podcasting scene who, you know, each of us have a handful of listeners, and we're all each other's basically handful of listeners pretty much. You know,
Yeah,
I mean,
pretty much, yeah.
for that to be actually something tangible like that, like 6 digits, not that the 90,000 we've raised over the past 7 years is small potatoes or anything like that, but it's going to be a huge milestone this year. Come get some merch. Exclusive Gerald shirt with artwork by Phil Rude is going to be available only for sale during the event. Once again, same thing as we did last year with the alien chest burster. This year's is, I promise you, it's also amazing. You're going to absolutely love it.
Wow.
So make sure you come out, save some pennies. And plus, hey, if you want merch, you can also get legacy merch. All the other Livestream for the Cure 1 through 7, you can get shirts with that artwork on it, or you can get 2 different designs from this year. That merch is also going to be up and available all the way through the event too. So just every single penny goes to a good cause. Come on out, support the cause. And you know, who doesn't want to think about World Immune to Cancer, Gerald? That's what I want to know. Who?
I know.
So come on out.
All right. So yeah, Livestream for the Cure, guys. In the show notes, you can find all the information. It's just livestreamforthecure.com. And May 29th is when it kicks off. It goes through June 1st, right? June 1st, Nick. June 1st. So make sure you be there. And if you can donate, that'd be great. But please share the event and tune in when you can. It's going to be a good time, and we're going to be raising money for a great, great cause. All right, Nicholas, so with that out of the way, we're going to be discussing Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes this week. Just released in theaters this past Friday, and I know you and I both got to see early screenings of it, and I've been kind of waiting to talk about it. I haven't really shared any thoughts about it on social media as of yet, because I knew we were going to be having this discussion tonight. But before we have that discussion, we like to start out every review with what we call one big question.
You gotta ask yourself a question.
I have a lot of questions. Number 1, how dare you?
I've got a one big question for you.
Fucking dare.
And it's actually very prescient that you say, how dare you, Gerald? I have a one big question for you right off the bat here. Okay.
Like from you to me, or
from me
one
to
of the
you.
fans?
Okay, so let me tell you.
I don't let you ask me questions. Did you submit it on Facebook? This is ridiculous.
Right there. I just read it. So I want to talk just a tiny little bit about my movie theater experience, and I want to do so by asking you a question, Gerald.
Yeah.
You get reserved seating at your theater, right? You go on a little screen and you pick your seats, right? Okay. So
yeah, of course.
Do you, when it's a screening where there's only a handful of people spread around the theater, do you in that app immediately find a seat and then pick like right next to it, like some stranger has seat A selected, let's call the seat G13, some stranger has G13 selected, do you immediately then go into your app or to the cashier buying your tickets and then select G14 and be sitting right in there next to him when there's a whole massive theater wide open? Like, think of like the wide open jungles and ruined cities of Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. You could go anywhere, but you choose to sit right next to the only, and I will say this, the only other ticket in that entire row of like 25 seats.
This happened to you during
This happened to me at Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I walk in, so I like to sit in the first row of the front well section. I've gotten older. I just like the screen to be a little bit closer, whatever. Okay, so I walk in there, and there's one person sitting in there as I head down, and they're right near the middle, and I'm like, oh, man, please tell me they're not in my seat, because I always hate that faux pas of like, hey, buddy, you're in my seat, and then, they got to get all their crap and move. But I get in there, and I go to sit down, and there's a drink in my cup holder on the right-hand side. And I said, is this your drink? The guy, because there was a seat, and then the guy was sitting there. I said, is this your seat? And he goes, oh, no, it's my partner's drink. So they had purchased, Gerald, again, I had the only, and I bought the first ticket in that row because I bought my tickets early. I was the only person in that row. They bought the 2 tickets immediately to my right. And then the other person comes back, and then, like, I'm a big dude. Like, they were both bigger dudes. So then they collected their drink and stuff, and they scuttled down a seat. But like, you had the whole damn theater. Why? This is like the urinal thing, Gerald.
What's the thought process?
It's like the urinal. You walk into the men's room. There's 5 urinals. There's one dude pissing at urinal number 1. Where do you piss? Anywhere but 2. Okay. This is the same exact thing.
Oh, I thought you were going to say number
number
one with the
you
guy.
get-
Is
cross
that
the
weird?
streams, you get
That's
some
weird,
cross the
right?
streams action going.
I've always, and my wife even tells me when she, because she went to see The Fall Guy with me,
Yeah.
for example, and she always asks me, why do you do this? Because I always get the seat on the end of the row in about the middle
Right.
area, all the way to the far left or all the way to the far right, whichever tends to be closer to the center, just to avoid, if somebody's going to sit next to me, that I don't have to sit next to two strangers. Do you know what I mean? So I always am like, I'm on the end seat. So at a minimum, I have my left all to me or whatever. But who does? Why would you do? I mean, if it was sold out, that's one thing. I get it. You don't have any, a lot of options.
I get it.
Yeah, that's a weird
There's
thought
at
process.
least 20. There's at least 25 seats, I think, because it was in the big theater. Because when big movies like this open, I like to see them in the big theater. They have the much bigger screen, much better sound, and all that kind of stuff. So I went in and like I'm just like 3 people. Like it's just us. You couldn't have literally put one more space on either side.
Well, that's
whatever.
why I asked you. That's why I asked you too if this was in reference to Kingdom, because I would have figured that would have been sold out.
Oh no, I go to the
like
Regal Ithaca, which is a ghost town. Even for brand new release big blockbuster movies, there are maybe a handful of people in those theaters, no matter what. I've never been to a screening there. I think the most sold screening I ever went to there was, I think, Oppenheimer, which was like 2/3 of the way full, maybe. And that's maybe because I'm not even 100% sure if it was that full. You know, I've been there to see lots of different stuff, and that place is I don't know how, like, that place was supposed to have gone bankrupt at some point before and have closed. Like, it was on the list of Regal theaters to be closed, but for some reason they kept it open. And I don't know how on earth they do business. Like, unless everybody else goes to the movies when I'm not there. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I don't know, give myself a whiff or something like that. But I don't know what it is. But that theater, like, even the big showings, like even this is a pretty hyped movie. Like, people love the original, the first 3 movies in this new trilogy. I really figured that this would be pretty packed, but no. I mean, I don't know how many people were up in the stadium seating up behind the front section there,
right?
Because I didn't look back. You know, I got there. I told you my theory.
Got that?
I got it. I nailed it first time. Like I don't know how many people were there, but like it couldn't have been more than like probably 10, 15, 20 people in the whole theater tops.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. So last Tuesday, which was like 4 days before the release, is when I went to my screening, and they did this thing because sometimes I'll get a press invite, which is what this was, but they did this thing where it was like half press, half public. So they released the other half of the theater for early screening for like the general public to buy. So mine was packed, and it was in a Dolby Cinema. I went with a friend of mine, luckily, so the two of us had seats next to each other. I took Kayla, patron of the show.
Thank you, Kayla.
And it was a much better experience than what yours sounds like. But yeah, sometimes I'll sit there, Nick, and I'll pull up the app if the theater's like, I don't know, half full, before the trailers start rolling. And I'll pull up the app as if I'm going to buy a ticket to see if there's anybody has purchased the
I've done that too. I've done that too.
This is getting kind of full. But yeah, I don't understand what kind of psycho would buy the seat next to the only seat
it was just
that's been
us
sold
3.
in a row.
It was just us 3 in that row.
Yeah.
So
that's weird, gentlemen. If you're listening, that's weird. Don't do that.
That was just
anymore.
one big question I wanted to ask you specifically. And then I'm going to grab another one here from Julio from the Contrarians. And he wants to know if you've come to terms with the fact that you may be the reason the Fall Guy bombed, and if you're planning to use your powers for good through the rest of the summer. That's what he said.
What?
It's your fault.
Oh, because I gave it a lower score than you. That must be what he means. It is kind of weird that somebody scored a movie lower than you, though. I mean, let's be honest. No, I haven't taken responsibility for that. I think it's a good movie. I think more people should have gone out to see it, and I think it's probably going to drop on demand any day now because movie studios do that. So
yesterday,
it's probably already out. But no, yes, I will try to redeem myself, though, Julio. I'm going to go see as many movies as I can, and we'll try to get back on the horse there. Let's see. I got a good one over here on Facebook, Nick, that I want to throw at you. Okay. So Christiani, also a patron of the show. We love Christiani. Very active during a live stream for The Cure as well that we were just talking about. I thought this was a really thought, and I don't know my answer yet. I saw this when he posted it because he was like really quick with posting it after I put up the question earlier today. And I kind of thought about it for a second, and then something started happening and whatever. So I don't really have an answer yet. I want to ask you first. If you had to be subservient to another species, what species would you want as your leader?
Subservient as in like I had to just do nothing but serve them. That was my whole life.
Yeah, or like they were the dominant species.
Didn't we already do a question like this, like the other, like a week or two ago? I swear to God, we did. It was something similar to this because I mentioned the dog episode.
No,
of Rick and Morty.
Amanda had. Yeah, Amanda had asked what if they were dogs, but Yaney's asking because Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes kind of takes that. It's X number of years past Caesar, so now apes are the dominant species, and humans are kind of hiding in the shadows. So, is there a species that you could see yourself kind of, I don't know if coexisting is the right word, but like because humans are the dominant species on Earth currently, right? Can you think of one? I'm trying to think, actually. I'm a cat guy. Let cats rule the world, brother. I got no problem being subservient to kitty cats. You know what I'm saying? Meow. You got anything over there, buddy?
Only
I'm not kidding
only
either. I'm not kidding either. I would
now,
love
listen,
that.
I will agree with you. Only if we can treat cats the way that cats treat humans now, as basically like,
Oh wow,
like
yeah.
we're already
I hate
we're
you.
already subservient to cats. Like that's already the role. Like you can't
That's
choose
true.
that. So like
That's true.
if you're gonna put us in that role where we get to poop in a box and like make the cats change it and make them feed us and give us belly rubs and stuff, but only when we want them, you know.
Yeah, that's true.
like,
Actually, that
I
would
know
be
I'm gonna
really,
agree with
really
you.
good.
Cats, yeah, good. I liked it. Cats, it's perfect.
Dude,
It's
that's the
perfect.
best.
Love it.
That's the best. I mean, did you ever see Taylor Swift and Cats? I mean, come on. You want that version of Cats running the world, brother? I'm following them anywhere.
No, you
what I'm
only
saying?
get to hang out with the
All
James
right.
Corden cat, and that's it.
Oh God, no, never mind then. Is that it? So we're good. You got any more
Yeah,
questions?
we'll
You
save
good?
them for later, maybe.
No, all right. Thanks for the questions this week, guys. Dropping them over there. If you want to get involved, you can shoot questions at us every week to start out each episode. One big question. Just join up on Facebook, Patreon, Discord, etc. All the information is in the show notes. You can join up and get involved over there. All right, Nick. So we're going to be talking about Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and we don't know what each other thought of this film. We're going to have a discussion about it. Before we do that, though, every review, Nick and I tell each other what our score out of 10 was individually, and it's a secret until we reveal it in the early score review.
Damn it, this always happens. I think I'm gonna score and then I never score. It's not fair.
Is not fair.
All right, man.
Yeah, I gotta
Kingdom
get the
of
card
the
out
Planet of
here.
the Apes.
Jeez, I didn't even grab the card. Oof.
Oh boy.
All right.
All righty.
So you ready?
You and I have been pretty eye to eye the last few weeks. Not a lot of arguing.
You're gonna give it a 2
so.
or a 1 or a 10.
Let's do it.
Or a 5 or something. I don't know.
Wow. If you say all the numbers at some point
I'm gonna nail it. 3,
right.
2, 1, go.
All right, here we
7.
go.
Again.
6.
Again, I'm higher than you.
No, what do you mean again? Oh, I thought you meant again
scary.
a 6. 6 out of 10
Do the
from
math
me.
on it.
7
Do the
out of
math.
10 from Nick. 6.5.
Wow.
I'm getting good at this, man. You can't stump me now.
This isn't even the same
So
show
6.5 from
anymore.
the
Who
P's.
are you?
6.5 from the P's on Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Spoiler free, Nick, here in the first few minutes or so. Just general thoughts. What did you like about this thing, man?
I mean, I love. I mean, again, I think there's a lot of really, really great performances in this. I think that it's obvious that they treated this with a little bit of the kind of reverence and kind of respect I would expect them to after the original trilogy, with how good it was and how well received it was, how well acted it was. I really, really think that the new cast here, I think, really shepherded that really, really well, I would say. I know we'll talk a lot about the performances and things like that as we move forward. Production design and things like that, I absolutely adored. I thought it was absolutely phenomenal. A little bit I would say a little bit uneven in a couple of places.
Hmm.
Maybe not paced
Yeah.
100% as well as it could have been. And
Hmm.
I don't know. I really feel like here's the great thing. We just reviewed Rise on the show like a few weeks ago, right? Rise doesn't
Hmm.
really feel like the part one of a trilogy to me. It does feel
Right.
like a
Sure.
whole and complete film kind of on its own. Like there's definitely jumping off points, but it in and of itself, Caesar is home. He goes off to, with the apes to live in the woods and everything like that. And we know that
Hmm.
humanity is going to fall because of the simian flu. That's it. Like, it's not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily, it's a complete film at the end of the day. This is too much of sequel bait. I'll say there's too many dangling
Hmm.
threads I feel like that are just left sort of hanging in this
Yeah.
that I
Yeah.
I don't know. And I'm gonna be the guy that says it. Kevin Durant, Martin Keamy, I love you, buddy. I love you so much from Lost. He's great as Proximus Caesar, but man, did they not, like, with how heavily they marketed that character, did not
Hmm.
really, number one, do as much with that character as I thought they were going to do, and number two, didn't really go into the whole perversion of the original Caesar's kind of teaching sort of thing. We talk a lot about runtime on the show when it comes to movies, but man, I really felt like this could have used a few more minutes to chew on some of the ideas that the script batted around. And, I really wanted to see some more of the stuff that happened in this fleshed out, and we just didn't get it.
Well, in terms of spoiler free, you nailed a couple of my points that brought it down for me, and that's really the pacing, the unevenness of it, and just kind of the lack of a surefire tone. Like it was kind of all over the place tonally for me too. We don't get. I feel like this is a movie that was trying hard to be that kind of origin for these new characters now that Caesar's out of the picture and all the other humans and apes that we got to know in those films are obviously gone because we're hundreds of years in the future here, presumably. And most of our pivotal players now, at least in this movie, and I would assume going forward, are apes because, like we were just talking about earlier, they're the dominant species now. Most of the humans died, and the ones that still survive are not as are thought to not as be intellectually advanced as the apes that are ruling currently, and etc. So the tables have turned, if you will, right, over the course of this franchise. Now we're in a different era now, where where black is white, white is black, up is down. It's different. So it wanted to really do that, and it kind of was marketed as such in the trailers and stuff like that. But then when I got to the movie and I'm watching the actual film, it just was missing the kind of gravity of that type of situation. Like it just felt like kind of, just a happenstance, like, oh yeah, by the way. So the storytelling and the pacing really kind of messed this up for me. I didn't hate it. I mean, I do think it's a good movie. I think the special effects are unrivaled. I mean, even for this series, this is probably the best that we've seen in terms of like the ape animation and the motion capture and the CGI that was employed. I think it all is top tier. It was a smidge choppy still when there's high action and rapid movement. You can still kind of tell a little bit, but you can see how much better it is from like when we talked about Rise, for example, which was in 2011, I think. So you can see how far it's come
I think
still.
the problem
So
with
I
the
mean, there's great
CGI
things
in
to take
this
away
is like
from
the
it.
same problem that the CGI in all the rest of these movies has. It's the motion capture stuff is incredible. It's when they go full CG, when they have the action shots of like
Right.
something happening where it's
Yeah.
clearly not, and no human actor is doing that. Like that's when it gets a little bit ropey. And yeah, you're
Right.
right. It's an
I agree.
evolved ropiness, but it's still ropey. It's always going to be.
I
They're
agree.
never going to perfect that. It's always going to be.
I agree. And this will come up a little bit more in spoilers, obviously. But, when we get to the last act of this film, it just really hurt it for me because of where it went. And it let me down. Like, I think I was probably riding a little closer to like a 7.5-ish. Because I really did like the journey that these characters go on. And the introduce of Nova comes in, the one human character that we see in the marketing and stuff. and she's really the only human that's prominent in the majority of the film. And Owen Teague, I thought it was a great performance by him, and a lot of good stuff in there. And I was really on board, even though the action was lacking, in my opinion. There were a couple pretty good scenes, but it just didn't seem as action heavy as the three films that I love that came prior to this. It was just kind of like I don't know, almost like a like a landscape epic kind of Dances with Wolves type deal. I don't know. It was a weird vibe. It was a weird vibe. Like I didn't really know how to feel tonally about this movie. So, and then when we get to the last act of the film, we'll talk about it when we get on the other side of the spoiler wall. But it just really let me down personally. I just didn't like the way it kind of left it. And you kind of touched on that a little bit about being kind of maybe sequel bait, and I agree with that. And I know they have a trilogy planned with this now, which is supposed to mirror the Charlton Heston films, right?
No.
Or is like the original or no?
No, I don't know if they're ever actually going to do that or not. I know we talked about that when we did Rise. Like that was something
All
I
right.
think they offhandedly mentioned, like, you know, maybe eventually. And I think even
It'd be
Wes
cool
Ball,
to
like I
do.
read some stuff that Wes Ball said about making this movie. It's like they still have the original movie, like they still have that original event like way out in the future somewhere, you know, that we might eventually get to. And who knows, you know, if this series will ever get to it, or if they'll get to it in this trilogy or whatever. I think maybe they'd still like to, but I mean, they got to keep the quality up if they're going to get us, they're going to get us that much further down the line here to that point.
Well, let's take a quick promo break, guys, and when we come back on the other side of this break, we will be full into spoilers for Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. So when we come back, we're going to be talking willy-nilly about this thing. Stick around. We will be right back.
I'll talk about Willie, but I'm not talking about Nilly.
Mm-hmm. What about Millie Vanilli?
Only maybe.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. As I said pre-break, we are talking about Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and we will be discussing spoilers going forward. So if you have not seen the film yet, please come back to this portion of the podcast after you have seen it so that you don't get spoiled. Nick, we're pretty eye to eye, I think, in our general thoughts. Let me skip ahead a little bit to tell you what really disappointed me. It really comes to fruition in the last act of the film, but then I feel like it kind of tarnishes a lot of the things that I enjoyed prior to that. I don't, and maybe this, when people listen back to this review after the sequel to this comes out, maybe I'll sound like an idiot. But right now, I just don't get what we're doing here, because to me, it was like humans are bad, and they're kind of beating that idea into us, because May, or Nova, the female character that appears to be like she can't talk and is subservient and is desperate, right, is being helped throughout the movie. And then we kind of get to the end film and we have that climax, and basically we find out that she was part of a society that's still around that was trying to essentially, I don't know if use is the right word, but use some of the apes to help them gain access to the power grid or whatever, which would then help them, you know, get back to being the dominant species. So I just feel like it's just missing something. Like I don't. So the first 2/3 of the movie for me, that payoff is very, very weak in my opinion. How do you get what I'm saying about the human tie-in there and how it? Yeah, it just really didn't do it for me. I don't know. What do you think, or do you have anything you want to add to that?
I think the great thing that the previous trilogy of Apes films did, especially in War and in Dawn, I think does it the best of all three of them, but it really gives you protagonists and antagonists on both the human and the ape side in it. And I think that the film just kind of doesn't make Nova's trajectory sort of obvious enough, if that makes sense. Like you can't really tell if she's a good guy or a bad guy. And like I said, I really liked one of the things that I think is so incredible about the original trilogy is how it skirted that line, and it always gave you apes to root for, but it always gave you reasons not to root for them, and it always gave you humans to root for, but it always gave you reasons not to root for them. And kind of even similar when you think about like Woody Harrelson's Colonel character in War. Like, he's a brutal dude who is doing brutal, terrible things, but at the end of the day, he sort of had a good reason for it and everything. And I mean, I don't know. Again, this is where I get into a lot of the faults I have with the film about how this is too much a sequel bait. There's too much we don't know, Gerald. There's too many unanswered questions. There's too many things that are left up there that's like, let us make that sequel. It's dangling that sequel carrot in front of you. Let us make that sequel. We'll answer some of these questions that you have about like this whole, huge human society. Like, obviously, it's still kind of a quarantined sort of society. Like, they have to stay away from being potentially infected with the mutated version of the simian flu, I would think, or otherwise they might lose their ability to speak. Like the girl at the end that she hands, it was like a sat nav connecting disc to like connect to satellites and things or something like that, where it's like she's still in like a quarantine suit or something like that. So is it something that they're still really concerned about getting infected? Like, are all other humans on the planet just kind of basically primitive savages at this point who can't talk and, don't have the intelligence that they used to have? And like, we do see like a roving gaggle of humans who's just kind of like grazing with a whole bunch of zebras in a cool scene. It was kind of neat and everything like that. But
let me add to what you're saying there too, because the zebra scene is one scene where it kind of started my thinking of this. But like Nova's character, the young girl, was portrayed in the first 2/3 of the movie. You mentioned how you didn't know if she was a bad guy or a good guy. To me, she was portrayed as kind of like this underdog, naive, kind of like, I used the term desperate earlier,
Right.
character who had been lost from her tribe or of humans or whatever, and was taken in by, Noah and his gang. So we get to that scene with the zebras. She sees the other humans, and she decides not to stay with them, but felt the connection to Noah that she wanted to continue to be with him. And I can't remember if it's before or after that he saved her from Proximus.
It's right after that, because that kicks off that
really
whole
good
action sequences where Proximus's like militia or whatever they are come looking for
Right.
for Nova. Yeah.
And I really like that element of like it kind of went back to the Caesar character for me, and how Caesar had that soft spot for humans because of what, how he was raised essentially. And he knew that there were good humans in the world. So he didn't want to, demean every human because of the bad acts of a few. And it kind of felt that same way to me. And I really liked that, like, homage to that original feeling I had with the Caesar character. And that's why I hated the last act of the film, when she starts talking and she starts like, her plan comes out and she kills William H. Macy and like, I mean, all this shit. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. I thought you were a sweet little girl underdog that, he was trying to save your life basically. But it turns out you're kind of masterminding this thing, which is going to essentially pit humans against apes all over again. So I don't know. I just didn't like how that turn went around like that. I would have liked it to have been a little more ambiguous or a little more like harmonious with the two races. And I think this series has been through that part where you mentioned Woody Harrelson, where like it's humans versus apes, and can they ever really coexist? And that's kind of the question that's always there with this series of films. And I like that they're still playing with that in
this film.
Too.
But here's some other things I don't really like about this film. This is 300, Gerald, 300 years after after War for the Planet of the Apes, after Caesar's time. Okay. So is it just me, or are the apes not quite as evolved as you would have hoped them to be? And I'll add to that the human characters that speak in the film. So you've got Nova and you've got William H. Macy's character Trevathan or something like that his name is. Why is it that they seem like they're still kind of like almost modern people in a sense? Like she's talking to William H. Macy in the one scene when she first meets him on the ship, and she's talking about like, oh, how this is our world and like all these kinds of things, like yearning after a society that's gone or something like that. But it's been hundreds of years. Her grandparents didn't even know. Her grandparents' grandparents didn't even know what life was like back before the fall of mankind. So how on like it really rang very, very false to me, this kind of idea that she yearns for the wave the world used to be or something like that. Instead of I would have
And she's young,
and
too.
she's very young, and I would have really, really liked some adaptability. If you're going to have humans that talk and that are still intelligent in the film like that, that's fine. That was an interesting twist to me. I didn't know that was going to happen. So I found that
Right.
was really, really interesting. But then I really, really disliked the kind of direction that it took it in, because to me, it seemed almost a little bit forced. Like no matter what you do, like you're still like humanity's been like utterly and completely decimated. But the fact that you yearn for this civilization that you were so far removed from, it's been 300 years. Like I said, her grandparents didn't even know what it was like to live before the fall of humanity. Like I would have liked to see a little bit more thought be put into the evolution of the human characters, and in terms of like how they view the world. And yeah, maybe they yearn for this kind of idea or something like that they had read about in a book or something like that, like these ideas that they learned about once upon a time or something like that. But I don't know, that didn't necessarily ring true to me. And like I said, maybe we only meet Proximus's clan of apes and we meet Noah's clan of apes, which is the Eagle clan, and obviously they've learned how to build shelters and like all that kinds of stuff. But like I would have liked to see a little bit more, a slight bit more advancement. Like even Trevathan made like the electric weapons that Proximus's apes use. Like the apes didn't even make those. Like maybe there are more advanced ape civilizations out there that we just don't know about, that maybe we'll see in different movies in this series that are yet to come. But I don't know.
Right.
I don't know.
Another thing that kind of irritated me, the last act really ruined this film for me, the last like half hour or so, because this is another portion that's in that segment. But what kind of drove me crazy, and I was kind of scratching my head and talking to my friend Kayla about it afterwards. So Noah and his two best buddies from his village or whatever, they reunited there with Proximus's gang and, whatever. So they come up with this plan with Nova assisting, and essentially there's this giant vault or whatever, like huge,
massive underground bunker
door. Yeah. It's a huge underground bunker with almost like a bank vault door on it, but it's huge. So Proximus's whole deal is spending every day for God knows how many years to try to get this thing open, setting off explosions. He's got all these different apes pulling chains, and they do all this different shit. They have these rituals every day to try to open it. And William H. Macy explains, and it's going to happen again tomorrow, whatever. So fucking in the middle of the night, Noah and a couple of his buddies go around to the back of the mountain and they get in. And I'm thinking to myself, you've got 1,000 apes there that have climbing
Not
ability.
a single one of them ever.
Nobody's
just climbed up that
Nobody's
hill.
thought to go on the other side of the hill to fucking figure out if there's a way in.
Yes.
So
yes. I thought I had the exact
what?
same feeling. I'm like, you mean to tell me that all these apes that are like climbing around and swinging around and doing all this kind of stuff, not a single one of them ever climbed up the hill and was like, hey guys, what? There's a door right here.
And it wasn't like a long journey. I mean, they literally just like walked maybe a mile.
No,
around
like
the mountain,
we see a shot of like the shore, like they're getting battered by waves on the shore, but like the Proximus's camp, like the ruined derelict ship is like right behind them still. It's like right there.
Right.
And then they climb up and it's like, oh, it's right. That to me was just like, really?
So they So they get in, they find the weapons, it's a pretty sweet scene where they find this book of
Yeah.
ABCs that, were probably from our time with kids reading and learning ABCs, and it had like, monkeys in the zoo and like, different things from our
Right.
time. And that was kind of a touching scene. They kind of got to see themselves the way humans saw them X hundreds of years ago or whatever. So there was some cool
Which is
stuff there, but
another
the whole time I'm
that
just
feeds
like,
even more into my problem with the evolution of humans in the film, because really they still view apes in that modern way that we do now. Like they live out in the wild, or they live in zoos behind cages. Like, this is hundreds of years removed, hundreds of
hmm
years, with talking intelligent apes doing all this different stuff. Like,
yeah,
this isn't. I wanted it to be a little bit more evolved in a different way than it was, and it seems like the human
yeah,
characters, especially, are too regressive. And maybe that's to a point. Maybe they're trying to just cling to a society that's not there, and maybe that's part of their journey in these new movies that we're gonna get. But it was just such a disappointment to
I
see
agree.
that.
I think architecturally and the different things you're talking about, like the knowledge and the growth of knowledge, feels like maybe like 50 years in the
That's
future,
what I
not
would have wished. I
300.
would have wished less than 100, like, so that the Caesar
Yeah.
wasn't like. And I'm gonna say this, and people are gonna hate me for it, because I love the character of Raka. I love the character of Raka. Absolutely pointless
Yeah.
to this film. He's literally in this film to just exposition dump at Noah about who Caesar was. And I would have
Right.
liked them, instead of having a very direct, overt, what was he, like a follower, like the descendants of the children of Caesar, or followers of Caesar.
Yeah. It
What
has
happened to
a,
Caesar's family anyway, by the way? That's, I guess, questions maybe we'll get answers to some other time. But like, I loved the character. I thought Peter McCann was great as the character, but it was pointless to the film. The character's entire point and purpose was literally to just spout Caesarisms at Noah. And just, in case you hadn't watched the other apes movies, Gerald, it was there to just kind of fill you in on, hey, there was this super important ape that lived a few hundred years ago that was pretty cool.
right. It had a huge like religious parallel
Right.
too. And I feel like his character kind of brought that to the forefront. I don't know if Wes Ball wanted it to be portrayed that way or if the screenwriters did or whatever, but I saw a very kind of deliberate parallel to like Jesus's story and Christianity. And he was wearing the medallion that had the symbol that he loved, which was the
Yep.
window that he grew up, the house he grew up in. But that's basically the cross, if you're thinking from in terms of
Right. Yeah.
Christianity, wearing the cross
Right.
around your neck. So I mean, I kind of get his purpose in the movie, and I do love him in the film. I thought that was another thing that was cheapened, though, was the way that he exited the film. I mean, he just kind of,
Yeah,
dies in the
he
stream
comes
or
and goes way
soon.
too quickly. And
Yeah, I'm like, this is an important character, and now he's gone, or I thought he was gone, and he never came back, so
I
he
think
was
the
gone.
film is
So I mean, that was
too.
kind of annoying
I'm
too.
really, really hoping. Now, I did stay all the way to the very end of the movie just to hear a monkey noise.
Me
And
too.
I
Me
don't
too.
know, like, they did this after Dawn of the Planet of the Apes 2, though. Like, you could hear breathing and like monkey noises at the end of Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. So they gave you that kind of hint that maybe Koba was still alive. And then they did nothing with it. And maybe that's telling us, maybe they're trying to plant that little seed that maybe Proximus is still alive. Listen, I love Kevin Durand. I'm a huge fan of Lost. So he shows up in season 4 of Lost as Kimi, the dude from the freighter. And like, I mean, say what you will about motion capture and like how great motion capture performances and technology are, but I'm telling you what, like, that character, like, just his mannerisms and like the way that he would flash his teeth and stuff like that, if you're familiar with Kevin Durand at all, 100% comes through in the motion capture performance. I mean, just the little grins he would give
That's
and
great.
stuff. It's such a good performance, and he's so charismatic, like so ridiculously charismatic. You can see why apes would follow him and why other like people would follow him and stuff like that. But I really, really hope that they don't just ditch that character, because God, he's so good in it. Like, I loved him. He's by far my favorite part of the movie. I loved him. I just wish they did more with him too. You know?
He was in Abigail this year too, which was a
Yeah.
vampire horror movie that I really liked. It was like a horror comedy, but he played Peter in that movie. He was really good in that. So he's got a good year going. One thing about Proximus I'll say though, which is to speak nothing negative of his performance, because I agree with you that it was a great performance. I thought from the trailers and even the posters that he was going to be a much more menacing, prominent villain
Yep.
in this movie. And I just didn't, I'm not going to say I wasn't afraid of him, but it was like until that scene in the end when he's really pursuing Noah in the flood at the very end, and he's really like, I'm going to basically kill this guy. And you could see in his eyes that he was just out for blood. But until then, it was just kind of a chill performance. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I wasn't like, this guy is like, you know, the Joker or some great Darth Vader. Like, I didn't get that vibe, even though I kind of thought that's what it was going to be. So that also was a bit of a letdown for me, because I think they could have really made him a sinister bastard in this movie. And I didn't really hate him, Proximus. Like, I kind of got what his deal was. Like, I kind of understood what he was trying to do, especially if you're rivaling it against like Christianity, like I mentioned. Like, I kind of get the allure of wanting to carry on the belief in Caesar, and, you know, I'm the second Caesar. You know what I mean? Like, I get where he's coming from. So I never really hated him. You know, does that make sense? Like, I know he was a bad guy, but I was never like, man, this is a cold bastard that needs to get his due,
and I
or
think
whatever. Like,
I
I
think
never
that's
felt
more
that
the
way.
marketing of the film telling you that than anything else. And I think that that's more of the actions of his apes, because I mean, make no mistake, he's basically pretty ruthless too. Like his apes are like pretty bloodthirsty when it comes to doing anything and everything that they do, which I think is to the film's credit. I just wish that they would have done more with that character, or that
Yeah.
even
me
if they
too.
didn't do more with him, if they didn't kill him off. Because if they have an end with like the little breathing at the end of the movie, if they want to bring him back, like they really could, but at the same time they might not, you know, like they might just move in a completely different direction. And I either don't kill him, or I mean, because I like a sympathetic villain. I like a villain whose motivations you can understand, you know, and
Right.
you know, he just wants to get access to that vault because he wants access to all the human technologies and stuff that he knows are inside, so he can use them probably for nefarious purposes, who knows what. But you know, more of an
In
explanation
his
or
mind, it'll be to
exploration of that
help
character
apes.
too might have been better too.
Just walk around the mountain.
I seriously,
door's on
dude,
the
I'm
other
so
side.
glad you
The
mentioned
back
it.
door is
I'm
over
so
there.
glad you mentioned it, because I thought the same exact thing. I was just like,
I'm like, what
it
the
was
fuck?
literally like,
That was easy. That's
you
what I
got
was
all
thinking to
these
myself.
apes that can jump and climb and like do all sorts of different things, and not one, the whole time you've been there, not one of them even just walked around that cliff and was just walking up there to look over the shore and was just like, oh hey guys, there's a door right here.
Yeah. Or like, you know, kids playing off, you know, the boundary, or I mean, somebody would have noticed something. But another thing is like when Nova said, I can't remember if it was William H. Macy or if it was Noah that she told it to, but there's one bit of dialogue where she says that she knows how to get in. And when she said that, I'm like, all right, there's another entrance somewhere that this guy doesn't even know about. And of course there was. By the way, I was going to say in this, like Koba in Dawn, now that's my kind of villain in these kind of movies, because he is sympathetic, because he starts as a follower of Caesar. Caesar unchained him, so to speak, from the humans testing on him and all that shit. And he really is loyal to Caesar, but he just has this deep-rooted hatred for humans that Caesar doesn't have. And they did a really good job at kind of like gradually getting him to the point where he snapped. And you believed it. And then after he snapped, he was such a vicious, vile villain, you know. And I just miss that ever since Koba in these movies. I mean, you know, I don't know if that makes sense, but and I kind of thought we might be getting back to that with some of the materials I've been seeing in the marketing for Proximus. But it was a great performance. It was just a little more subtle than I expected from like a villain performance.
I just wanted more. I think I wanted more from this, and I think I'm not disappointed. Like I still enjoyed a lot more of this than I didn't, but I really, I don't know. Like I've never written like post-apocalyptic fiction or anything like that to try to imagine. Well, I can't say that I actually have, but like I think one of the things that I think should have been done more carefully or crafted more carefully is the evolution of the human characters in the film. I think that they literally just play as like, like this just happened yesterday. Like it wasn't like generations and generations ago for them. This happened yesterday almost, where it's like, Trevathan's character, William H. Macy, shows up in the movie as Trevathan. And I always love William H. Macy, but it's a nothing burger of a character. You never learn anything about him, why he's there, except for he broke his ankles and then Proximus found him or something like that or whatever. I don't even know.
Yeah, I mean, he was living in fear and just doing whatever Proximus wanted and reading him. He was like the court jester, He was just entertaining Proximus, reading him stories. Like, I mean, it was like, I was like, what? But I guess that was a way Proximus is learning about the human race is from, William H. Macy basically teaching him or whatever. But there was a lot of things that were it was just weird choices left and right. I mean, I didn't hate it. Like I said, I love the visual effects. I love the scenery. Most of the performances in the film I thought were awesome. I didn't like the culmination in the last act of the film, really kind of ruined it for me personally. But with that being said, I will be seated for the next installment. I do want to see where it goes. And I always am interested to see this series. There's not been a bad movie in the Planet of the Apes series. That was a question that got thrown to us too, Nick. Is there a more consistent franchise in your opinion? Because somebody said that. Let me see if it's still on Facebook.
And we're 4 films into this now. I mean, because you think of all sorts of other different franchises and whatnot, and
all right. So let me tell you real quick before you answer. We'll just go ahead and throw up another one big question at the end of the show. Jared Taylor says that he's heard a few critics of the Ape saying that the Apes films are the most consistently good franchises in film history. Is there another franchise that you feel could also deserve that title?
It's tough, man.
The most consistently good.
It's tough. It's really tough because you think about big franchises. I'm not a big Marvel guy, so I know maybe you'll have better things to say about that kind of thing. I do like some DC movies, but not even DC. Star Wars, no. Lord of the Rings, no. Alien, no.
Hear me out.
Okay.
I don't think there's been a bad movie in the Scream franchise.
I haven't seen them all, so I can't tell you that. So
I know you haven't seen them all, but to answer Jared's question, or for anybody listening, the only one that would maybe come close in terms of consistency, I'm not saying the level of filmmaking is the same, because I mean you're talking about a slasher with teenagers in it versus like this epic, mocap thing or whatever. So they're not on the same level of film. I wouldn't be comparing the two otherwise, but I will say that I don't think of the 6 films that we've gotten thus far, and frankly the TV series too, that there's been a bad installment. They've all been at a minimum like C+, B- at a minimum. So I think that's a pretty consistent run too for the Scream franchise. But other than that, I think Jared might be onto something. I mean, these are 4 films that, and I wasn't even super high on this one. And I don't see how anybody could walk away from this going, I hate it. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like you'll at least appreciate enough about it to where you'll say it's a decent
it's probably
movie,
the weakest of the 4, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. All right. So anything else you want to say about Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes as we wrap up here, buddy?
No, I really do hope that it continues. I really do hope that it makes its budget back. I mean, it did have a great opening weekend, so we'll see where it goes, and what if they pick up another sequel or two, and where the story goes from here. I'm interested to see. Man, don't sequel bait us so much. That was all 3. Even Dawn's like that. Even Dawn, like the army's coming to fight the apes at the end of the movie, and you kind of get that like looming danger that's coming. But it still feels like a complete movie with just a little bit of a dangling thread. This is so many different seeds being planted for all these future movies and the future of the franchise and stuff. And I really, really hate that. Like this, basically, like half of this movie is just set up for the stuff to come. I don't need that. Make full and complete movies and just plant little seeds. That's all you got to do. Plant little seeds.
I think there could be great things to come if they turn this into a trilogy or whatever. I think it could get better, which is what makes me hopeful, because I gave this a 6. So obviously I hope that the next one is a 7 or an 8, and then I hope, you know what I mean? So that kind of leaves me hopeful. It leaves me wanting more, which is a good thing. But of the Apes films, it's my least favorite, but that's also not saying a whole lot because I love the other three. So there you go. I think it's a mild recommend for me, and Nick's a little more emphatic about it. But if you're a fan of these films, I think you really kind of have to see it.
I think you're gonna
I mean,
like more
honestly.
than you don't, but I think you're gonna.
Yeah.
It's not gonna sit with you the way that the first three did after you leave it. It's not gonna just kind of hang with you because I got to be honest, G. I saw this Thursday of last week, and I haven't been thinking about it. That's why I knew today my rating was going to
No.
be a 7. I have not been really thinking about it all that
Same.
much since.
Same. I mean, I was joking with you before we started recording. I hope I can remember what I
Yeah.
wanted to say about it. It's been a week.
I don't think it's
You know,
forgettable. I
and
don't want to say it's forgettable, but I also don't think
no.
it's not a movie that really just thematically or like anything that really hangs super tight with you and just like I'm going to keep thinking about that after I leave the theater. It's like, okay, it was a good popcorn movie I watched with its share of problems. Let's have another one.
So Nick dropped a 7 on Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I gave it a 6, which it puts us at a 6.5 from the P's overall on Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Also, it's the second week in a row that Nick rated a movie higher than me.
What's wrong with me?
So if you think it's 300 years in the future and you're in a parallel universe where me and Nick still have a podcast, and that's what I guess that's what's happening. Nick, next week as we get closer and closer to Livestream for the Cure,
I got
next
a question
week,
for you.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
About human society after they're living in a bunker somewhere 300 years in the future. You think they're still listening to the P's, right? They're still rocking. You know, they're digging up really old DVDs of stuff they got, and they're like, I unearthed these audio files, these digital files found in this cache somewhere of these two guys doing this movie show talking about this thing.
I assume that's why that's
what they're holding on to.
Going, I assume. Yeah, they're like, we got to get back humanity so that we can get these guys back on Spotify. That's the whole thing with the
that's humanity's trajectory, just to get Spotify back. Yeah,
that might not be too far off for TikTok or something. Yeah, all right. Social media, we got to fix it. I haven't been able to post pictures of my food in the last 300 years. All right, next week, Nick, what I was going to say before you hit me with that thinker there of a question is we're going to be airing our first ever movie draft. We're introducing them to the 2-piece format. We're going to be doing them once a month, and we got our boy Justin Winters, who kind of started the whole thing, at least in our podcast community, several years ago, and he got on the mic with us, and you, myself, and him gave us our team of 1994
Gerald
movies.
Cheated.
So the first, yeah, I'm being told that I cheated. I don't know. So the 1994 movie draft will air next week. Then Nick, I think we're going to come back right before Livestream and squeak in a review of Furiosa. At least that's the plan.
Wait.
As long as we both get a chance to see the Mad Max.
I've heard very
saga,
good things. I've
heard
such good
Furiosa.
things. So
let's check that thing out. By the way, I meant to tell you, they opened a new media consignment shop near me, and I just got Mad Max Fury Road, which I didn't own before, on Blu-ray for $1.95 at this place. And I was like, I'll scoop that up. So I have it on Blu-ray, so I'm going to throw that on and rewatch it before I see Furiosa. But guys, make sure you tune in next week for the first ever 2-piece movie draft, where we'll be doing 1994 films. And if you have a suggestion for us going forward, Nick has to come up with the next one.
Oh, no.
But then after that, if you have a suggestion for us for movie draft topics, make sure you throw it in the Discord or on Patreon or Facebook or wherever the hell you want to. You can text it to me if you feel like it, and it'll get put into the suggestion box. Nick, I appreciate you, man. Let's get together. Let's get together soon and talk movies. I think we should do that.
All right, let's do it.